as someone who was very idealistic in his approach to everything, how did it must have been something gradual in the way drugs were introduced in his life, or not?
No, it was. He was kind of a health freak, actually, being a vegetarian and against alcohol, not even drinking coffee. He would not let any poison into his body because his body was so precious, he thought, because he had to save the German nation. So he was really like he was stylized also as like a saint-like figure by Nazi propaganda, which is still how I learned about him, not as a saint, obviously, but as this like Hitler's abstinence from drugs was kind of known in Germany before my book came out, because it's totally untrue. But in 1936, when he met Theo Morell, who would become his doctor, he just had stomach problems, like bad digestion, and this actually has a Serbian connection, this story now. Morell knew about a probiotic.
Oh, I know the story. Yeah. I know the story. First World War. The guy who didn't... Yeah, you tell the story, yeah. It's a very famous story, though.
Yeah? Here too?
I don't know how famous story. You know, Marco? Yeah. It's a known story. It's a known story, but yeah, please do tell it.
Well, I don't even know if I know it as well as people here, but it was this one guy who was fighting in the Balkans and did not have like diarrhea like all the others, or like, and then from his gut, like his, what's it called, biome?
Yeah, microbiome from the stool. Yeah,
was used to create this medicine called Mutaflor, which is a probiotic remedy, which is still on the market in Germany. I guess it's still from that same gut of this guy. I don't even know if it was a Serbian guy or a German guy. I don't know. Some guy. I don't even know what battle. I really didn't get into it. Like, where did this all happen? But it comes from the Balkans, like the probiotics from the Balkans. And Morell gave it to Hitler, and it worked. He suddenly had no more cramps. So I don't. He was farting a lot. Like, suddenly it was okay. It was like a huge problem for him before. So he really appreciated that, and his like normal doctors did not know about probiotics. Morell was a kind of an avant-garde doctor, kind of a celebrity doctor in Berlin with like crazy ideas. And Hitler liked crazy ideas and crazy approaches, being like, he was kind of a, like, for sure he would be like anti-vax today.
Yeah.
He was not going with the mainstream stuff, So he appointed Morell to become his personal physician. And Morell was really into vitamins, which were kind of unknown at the time, like all these supplements we take today. Morell was really into researching what to take to optimize, your health. And Hitler was, all about optimizing his health because he had to save the German nation. And he had to do so many things while he was, had to be healthy. So he was really becoming like obsessed, like today people in Silicon Valley, to be like at their best. So he was taking supplements and vitamins and from Morell. So these were not drugs, obviously. They can be good. Like also peptides. Hitler would have loved peptides. He would have become a big peptide fan. And he also liked, injections. So some peptides you have to inject, so he would have loved that. So he got like a daily vitamin injection from Morell, because he just enjoyed injections, because he said injections have an immediate effect. You don't have to wait until it goes like through your digestive system like a tablet. So he was into injections, so he received daily injections from Morell to enhance his performance and optimize his health. And he was pretty healthy until 1941, when Germany attacked the Soviet Union. He had dysentery, which is like a high fever and diarrhea, and he felt really bad. It was in August 41.
This is all in the documents.
Yeah. And he wanted to go to the military briefing that was so important because Germany had advanced quite like a few hundred kilometers already inside the Soviet Union, and now had to either go for Moscow or go up to Leningrad and south towards the Caucasus region for the oil, which was Hitler's plan, but High Command wanted to take Moscow. They said, if we take Moscow, we're going to win the war. So there was a dispute. Like, it's not like Hitler called all the shots. There was always like friction with High Command if they had different ideas. You know, he was a dictator. So in the end, it was always his call, but people would try to convince him, you know, of their opinion. So the military briefings were important meetings, and, you know, war is a live situation. So he could not go to the military briefing. They could have just made a different decision because you can't wait, you know, for the Führer to like show up, you know, this is like happening now. So he said to Morel, I need something more, something stronger than vitamins. I need like something, like he felt like shit, basically, like really weak. If you have a very strong flu, you know, you can't really.
Yeah, it is debilitating.
It's really a strong, illness if it's a strong flu. This was like the Russian flu, the dysentery, the Ruhr, it's called in German. So he drank bad water or something, probably. So Morel gave him a opioid for the first time, Dolantin, which is was a German product, and Hitler takes this opioid
intravenously.
I think it was actually orally.
Okay.
Yeah, he had not graduated yet to taking opioids intravenously. Maybe Morel was said, "No, this is very strong. Maybe you should take it as a pill."
Okay.
Because, you know, injecting opioids, that's really hardcore. You know?
Yeah.
So that was taken orally, but it's still a very powerful drug. So he just, half an hour later, just got out of bed, he walked into the military briefing, and he, you know, called the shots. I have made a similar experience once when I was on the tennis team of Flint, Michigan. I felt I was really sick, and it was the most important match of the season. I mean, very different from Hitler's decision on how to run the attack on the Soviet Union, but I could not move. And the doctor gave me an opioid. And half an hour later, I was on the court and I beat the guy. So these substances can be very strong. And Hitler was totally impressed by this. Like, wow. So that was the moment, that was his entry point into the world of opioids. And he never left that world. And he became basically an opioid addict after a few years. Like he didn't take so much in the beginning, like he didn't become a full-time opioid user, but again and again he would use an opioid, and then they started injecting an opioid, and then in 1944 he was like injecting it every other day.
So that's my question. Like, so gradually he advanced the usage. Well, Theodore gave him, but he also had another doctor at a certain point, as far as I remember, right? But in the late stages, how much of substances and what kind of substances did he use? How much of it and what kind? And the other thing is, have you pinpoint certain times and places in which those substances played significant role in his decision making?
Well, Hitler's drug use is really fascinating, and there's one entry by Morel where he like writes down like all the stuff that it's quite a lot of different medications, and Morel was not really good at understanding that if you take, like, for example, like Hitler took over, I don't know, 70 or 80 different medications.
Wow.
Not all of them are like a habit forming, but quite a few are. And like he would receive on one day like 10 different ones, which probably Trump, you know, receives also, you know, a lot of, you know, old people take a lot of stuff. Hitler wasn't old, but he kind of used drugs like an old person, or like a young Berlin clubber, you know, polytoxic. Like he took everything, you know, together. Like, and Morel did not understand that, or really examine that maybe it was counterproductive. Like some substances just don't work with other substances, or they could create like problems together. Like that's hard to understand, and Morel didn't really care about that. So the interesting substances are, the most interesting is opioids, because he was using several different opioids, and the one that he liked the best is called Eukodal in German. It's by Merck, who also had the cocaine product. And today it's called Oxycontin.
Ah, okay.
It's
Yeah.
the same stuff. Germany
That
lost
created
the
a-
patent. Created a,
Epidemic in the States.
because it's very powerful.
Yeah.
And because you become addicted to Eukodal, and the high is quite pleasant, which I had known because I've never really injected it. Well, not really. I never, ever injected Eukodal. I don't inject drugs. But I know a guy who's actually had injected it. And he told me that the effect was absolutely mind-blowing. Like, really, like, you feel like extremely clear, extremely euphoric. So it's not like opioid, maybe you think you become like drowsy or like, but with Eukodal, it has this like euphoric making effect. So for Hitler, he really liked that. Like if you had to go to a very difficult briefing where generals would all tell him it's all, the war is really not good and we have to change tactics, whatever, we have to retreat, and Hitler would use an Eukodal injection to really feel like Hitler again, right? Totally confident. And his confidence would actually work in the room. Like generals were like, wow, he knows something we don't know. Like he's so confident. Like he can't share everything with us. Obviously, there's wonder weapons and everything. We're going to win. Like Hitler became really convincing through the Eukodal. So all of this is of relevance to the war. There are a few situations where you could like connect a certain decision directly to drug use also, which is kind of interesting. Like he was using another substance quite regularly after the bomb attack by Stauffenberg on July 20th, 1944, so-called Operation Valkyrie, which injured Hitler because the bomb was going off like a few meters away from him, and it blew up a table, and the table splintered, and he was full of wooden splinters, and his eardrums were blown. Some people in the room were dead, so it was quite a big explosion. He was just lucky that the table took a lot of the hit from the bomb. It was a very big German table. So the table saved his life. But he was injured, and then another doctor came in. This is the second doctor you talked about. His name was Giesing, and Giesing's drug of choice, medicine of choice, was cocaine. And so Hitler was, when he took the cocaine for the first time, he was like completely amazed how clear he could think. And he said, Giesing, this is amazing. But Giesing just gave it to him against the pain, in the ear, like his eardrums were like blown. But Hitler like was more into like this, the psychic stimulation of cocaine, which there is, if you take cocaine, you think you're like the greatest, which is what Hitler thought anyhow. But he was like depressed from like being like, there was a bomb attack, like traitors in his own ranks, like everything's falling apart. But then he takes cocaine, is like back on track.
But it can also be paranoia inducing.
It could, but maybe not the first couple of times he used it.
Okay.
I don't know. He liked it, but Giesing gave one report about this cocaine usage after the war to the American military investigators. So this is in the archives in Washington. So he only writes about Hitler's enthusiastic reaction to cocaine.
Okay.
And he writes about himself as a doctor realizing that this guy is a drug guy.
Oh.
It's like he like immediately loved it. And so he took opioids from Morel, which the opioid makes you euphoric, but it's at the same time it does also sedate you, like you become more detached from reality.
And mellow, yeah.
Maybe a bit mellow, and then you take the cocaine on top of that. It's the speedball effect. This is like the perfect combination. But it's also very, stressful for your organ, for your system,
Speedball can be stressful.
Yeah. Because then also at night you can't sleep. Then the sleeping pills are being administered. So Hitler became like a real like professional drug user. Like only methamphetamine he didn't take, but he didn't need to because he had opioids, cocaine, and that's already quite a lot. You don't need methamphetamine. Like people who take cocaine, they don't use crystal meth.
Yeah.
He was not a crystal guy.
People who take cocaine don't usually take heroin also, but some do.
Yeah, some do.
Some do, but some do.